because we've got an action-packed program and a lot to cover. So welcome. It's great to have you all with us today. My name is Doug Dixon, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Encore Network Program Committee, along with Kathy Hallisey from the Cleveland Foundation and Remus Jason from PSS and Coming of Age in New York. And today we're going to be talking about employment, which is a hot topic for many of us, probably all of us, which is why we're here today. You're one of 58 people who registered for this webinar. So obviously from that measure alone, it's something that we all care deeply about. Our last event focused on racial justice, and the one before that on the pivot that we all made as a result of the pandemic last year. And we've got lots of other programs planned, and we'll be hearing more about that in the coming days and weeks, both monthly webinars, but also other events and ways for us to remain connected. So stay tuned. I'm also board chair of Encore Boston Network. And the number one thing that our members are telling us is that they want more information on job search. That's the topic of the hour. And we all know that job search for anyone of any age is a challenge, but it's especially daunting for people over 50, and particularly in this market. So we're going to showcase 4 innovative programs from within our own network that I think we all can learn a lot from. And I'll introduce our presenters in a few minutes. We have only an hour together today, and there's a lot more on this topic that needs to be covered than we can do in this time. So we will offer the opportunity for those of us who have this high on our agenda to continue the conversation in the form of an affinity group that will continue as long as we want it to. And our first meeting will be February 3rd. We'll send out more information about this, but if you're planning your schedule, February 3rd at noon Eastern, we'll get together for an hour to begin the process of exploring beyond what we're able to talk about today and continuing the conversation. If you would like to be a part of that session, feel free to put your name down in the chat. And if you have thoughts about an agenda for that first conversation, feel free to chat those as well. Before I introduce our speakers, a couple of logistics. First of all, everybody will be muted during the presentations. But as we move into the second part of the program, where we'll have a chance to ask questions and to share information about what we ourselves are doing in our own work, you'll have a chance to unmute yourself, but we ask that you remute yourself. I think that's a word, it is now, to reduce the background noise. The chat function will be open, and we encourage you to enter questions so that we can come back to those when we get into the next phase of our program today. And finally, I want to remind you that that we're recording this today, and we'll be sending you a link to the recording, and it will also be posted on our website in a few days. So our first speaker today is Tim Lybarger. Tim is board chair and program director of Encore Northeast Ohio. And Tim will provide some background information first about the challenges faced by older workers, and then hit some of the high points of the work that Encore NEO does to prepare older workers for transition and the job search process. After that, Kate Schaefers, who was executive director of University of Minnesota Advanced Careers Initiative, will talk about the work that they do to help people explore opportunities and possibilities. And then Dave Garvey, who is director of Encore Encore Connecticut, sorry, will talk about how his program strengthens skills, adds credentials, and provides practical experience for people in transition. And finally, Janine Vanderberg, who is executive director of Changing the Narrative Colorado, will focus on the importance of changing policies and practices to remove barriers and to expand opportunities. So that's our order of go. That'll take about half of our program, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments. So before I hand the mic over to Tim, Paula, we have a poll. Paula, do you want to launch the poll?
We do, and I will launch it.
So what do you see as the top challenge or opportunity regarding supporting employment for people over 50? Transition, coaching, reinvention, skill building, or ageism? And we can choose more than one. Is that correct? Or do you want just one, Paul?
I don't know if it will let you choose more than one or not.
Probably
Let's
not.
try it and see if it works.
I think it's set up just for one.
Okay, so pick your.
I chose more than one and it accepted it, so.
Okay, wonderful. We are at 94% voted, so I think
Let's see what the results are.
let you see that.
Okay, the winner is ageism, not a big surprise, followed by transition, reinvention, and skill building. And we're going to touch on all of these topics. So Tim, do you want to take us away?
Sorry, a little trouble unmuting there. I will do that. Thanks very much, Doug. And a correction to make. Jim McDonough is our board chair. I am the program director for Encore, and I welcome the opportunity to both set a little context for our discussion today and to give a little bit of a peek at what we're doing at Encore. For interest's sake, I selected transition because I see transition as the primary circumstance that we're trying to support. And just out of curiosity, how many people saw the first-time unemployment numbers that came out this morning? Anybody see that? 965,000 first-time unemployment figures. So things are not getting better in that regard. It is what it is, and the question is, how do we respond to it effectively? And so the emphasis here today is around, we've heard purpose, passion, and paycheck. The emphasis today is around paycheck. And there's some things that I'm going to walk through pretty quickly here so that we can get on to the meat of discussion. Number one, we are in a dangerous place, okay? As our society as a whole, there's a lot of things going on out there. But as Doug pointed out, especially in the 50 plus category. And I direct you to the website to get a good look at Janine's 50 plus Colorado workforce survey if you haven't seen that yet. And of course, Janine, you'll be talking about that a little bit more later on, but just some terrific results in that study. Bit of a busy slide, but I'm going to walk through it very quickly for us. This is around the external conditions that we see that we're facing. Number one, obviously, political and civil unrest at the top of the list. We're all in an anxious place around what's happening with that. That impacts not only the employment situations with the uncertainty, but our own anxiety level in trying to connect. Government paralysis in many ways, reflected even through how we're receiving our mail today. We know that institutions are having a lot of trouble functioning effectively. Certainly the pandemic, it's a huge one, which contributes to the economic uncertainty. So we've got some really, really big things going on. And to get current data specific to the age 50 plus demographic, I think, Janine, you may have the most current specific to Colorado. I think your study runs from September to December, if I'm not mistaken on that, but very recent. And yet, given all of the other things around the new things around political and civil unrest, who knows? This is all on the backdrop of a growing wealth gap in the economy, the erosion of personal savings. So people are drawing off their savings if they had any at all. So the long-term reserves are really dropping for people, and disruptive innovation. The skills and tools that we had before may be not relevant today, or less relevant. So we're forced to pick up some new ones. And then obviously the category of ageism. As far as opportunities, though, there are many out there. Number one, we've got a longer time to live. Okay, so we can remain relevant for longer times if we're working on that. New virtual technologies by force of pandemic. Here we are connecting in ways that we haven't before. That opens up new opportunities. There are segments that we're seeing rapid job growth in. Both the new circumstances that people are trying to do from home in the virtual workforce, but the longer term things such as supporting the aging demographic, lots of new job growth in those areas. Also, everything is forcing us to pick up some new personal focuses. I call it the frugality focus, getting back to basics. Okay, now that has its own larger effect on the economy, but people are taking a closer look at how we live. And these disruptive innovations are offering us, again, new opportunities for jobs that didn't exist in the past or work. Also, this is truly forcing all of us to redefine ourselves, who we are for the marketplace, who we want to be in our own lives, how we define quality of life, and what I call a return to the commons. All of us have difficulty navigating this on our own, so we're connecting with smaller groups as we are here. So yes, there's a lot of challenges in the external conditions, but a lot of opportunities as well. Now, as far as the internal conditions, what I want to share is some language that I have heard and felt myself. Right at the top of the slide here, hi, I used to be somebody. We have a real existential crisis happening with those in the 50 plus demographic. People used to come to me for answers. Now I seem to be non-existent. This is a dramatic switch for people, and we can't minimize the psychological impact of it. Who I used to be doesn't exist anymore. I don't know who I am now. I think I've got a lot to offer, but nobody seems to want it. Okay, where's my value today? I don't know where I fit in. I'm sick of the corporate thing and I don't want to go back there. They don't want me anyways. So where do I go with my career here? I've lost confidence in myself. Can I really do what's necessary to support myself? I remember the thought, I shared it with my wife. I don't think I can make money. I don't know if I can make money anymore. Nobody seems to want what I have to offer. Here I feel I'm at the top of my game. And yet, how do you make a paycheck today without, getting a minimum wage job? I need the income, but I'm losing the energy and motivation. Okay. How long can I do this? How long can I keep up under these overwhelming odds that I'm saying? And I'm not sure what my value is anymore. There doesn't seem to be any purpose in my life. Now, all of these things connect to what we're seeing. There's a general, I think, 30% increase in suicide over the last 2 decades. But there's this growing isolation, and there's a movement towards an increase in drug and alcohol abuse. There's a disconnecting from society. The economic consequences of this from people who used to contribute to the economy and now all of a sudden are having to pull off of it from social services and all of those things, again, doesn't bode well. So we have the external conditions that we're trying to live up to, that can live up against, which can feel overwhelming. And we have this internal dialogue happening at the same time. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what Encore and EO is doing in response to this. In the stuff that we have piloted, tested over the last 6+ years at this point, the thing that really rises to the top is community, community, community. To break this isolation for people. And again, this is for me around the point of readiness, preparing for the transition. The most valuable thing someone can do, we have found, is connect with a group of people who they come to know and trust and can share and can do shared problem solving with. So that's right at the top. The other thing we really try to emphasize here is income security versus job security. Inevitably, it's natural for people to think that, you know, my problem is I lost a job, the solution is to find a job. Well, job security is a thing of the past. And so it really is a focus on income security. We speak right up front about multiple revenue streams, not just finding one to rely on. We need to build, it's like being a company with one customer. Maybe we've heard that analogy before, but we need to find ways to diversify our income streams. The other thing we try to emphasize then is what we call right side up thinking. Much of the traditional job search has been focused on me, who I am, what my credentials are, why I'm a fantastic person, all these kinds of things. It doesn't sell, okay? What sells is how I can solve a problem. And when we work with people, we right from the get-go encourage people to think of a fishing line, which is 15 words or less of who I help and what problem I help them solve. Real simple terms, my value for the marketplace is how I can solve problems. My credentials, they might have an initial impact or might mean something in the long run, but people hire me to work for them because I can provide value. Now, also helping people identify those areas through the fishing line where we can be so good they can't be ignored. And this is a line that comes from a book by Cal Newport, So Good I Can't Be Ignored. Pick that area of value that I want to create for the marketplace and build career capital around it. Be so excellent in that area, always with an eye to the adjacent possibilities. So as we see so many of those things emerging today, not be stuck in the rigid frame of a particular job or job title. Where can I add value and how can I continue to expand on that? Permanent beta, we use the term design thinking. We are in constant innovation around what we do, testing or developing prototypes and testing them in the marketplace and constantly evolving. And then also a very holistic approach to this. It's not only managing, we have 4 primary categories here that we build our programming around: managing work, managing money, managing self, and managing others. So it takes us into the areas of emotional intelligence and our effectiveness, not only in establishing our own focus, but sharing that effectively with others. This is the primary framework that we use to help people think this through. And it is around the business model generation canvas, which has been used to help organizations create innovation. Tim Clark, a number of years ago, came out with an application to the individual, the personal business model canvas. Obviously, I don't have the time to go through this here now, but there are 9 components that really relate to who we want to help and how we want to help them, the channels to connect, full-time traditional employment, part-time employment, freelancing, start my own business, all those kinds of things, what kind of relationship we want with them, what kind of activities do we need to be good at, resources we need, and key partners. Most important here is revenue and benefits, not only the hard benefits in cash, but the soft benefits. Do I want to work full-time? Do I want to be part-time? And then the costs associated with it. Through that lens, we can evaluate the opportunities. The last thing I'll share with you is that this has worked for us. These are 4 folks who all happen to be on our board of directors. Vivian's with us here today. Jim is as well, Annette, I think, not Gary. But Vivian, who completed her college degree later in life, Vivian, I'll let you share on that. I'm not going to talk about your age. Is now a mostly full-time administrative communicator traffic cop for a local church, manages that communication. Jim started his own business in installing information or technology systems in homes, and networks through 3 different client providers around environmental services, and she has a part-time job Gary has the portfolio career where he works on his own in recruiting and has a couple of other businesses he does on the side. I've taken enough of the time here, but that's hopefully a quick view of what we do. I'm going to pass along now to, who are we going to?
Kate.
We're going-
I'm going next, Tim. So
Okay.
Kate, so Tim, thank you so much for framing this up. And a lot of what you've been talking about resonates with our experience as well. And I think one of the things that we are realizing is that we really need new scripts for a new life stage that has opened up in between the career building, family building years and the frailty that we associate with old age. And this is a new life stage that we don't necessarily have a lot of blueprints for. And so people really do struggle with navigating them. We know that people in their 50s, 60s, 70s increasingly want to work and need to work. And so when we look at that need, that's going to be increasing too, as we look at some of the Gen Xers coming forward into this life stage. But they don't want the same jobs anymore. They often want to work differently. They want work that is sustainable, that allows them to also engage with some of those other important areas of their lives, increasingly also caregiving and those other kinds of part-time jobs that we're doing that may not be paid. They're also looking at ways to make a difference and to give back to their communities. And they want portfolio careers and lives oftentimes. So they're wanting to piece together things that allow them more flexibility, but there's few pathways. So we created University of Minnesota Advanced Careers Initiative as a gap year for grown-ups to try to step back and think about what they want, to renew, to refocus for this new life stage ahead that is increasingly going to be including paid work. And so we provide some space and time to think about this next stage, to prepare, as Chip Conley has talked about, for long life learning. So to continue to grow that and allowing yourselves to not only to learn new skills, but also to learn how you want to be and what you have to offer and how you can live a sustainable life in this life stage. So with our program, we bring fellows back to campus as a cohort. They're on campus for 9 months. It's a part-time program. We place them in the classroom where they learn about grand challenges. They explore different interests around ways that they want to contribute to the greater good. So they learn about things like poverty or climate change or global health or food sustainability and hunger. And so they learn about these bigger issues. They're learning alongside undergraduate students. And then we place them with a nonprofit to work on a project. So the idea is that they come back to campus, they immerse themselves in learning about something that they care about, and then we give them a hands-on experience so they can try out their skills. And it's a cohort program. One of the paradoxes is we know that in this life stage, people oftentimes want to reflect on their lives. They want to reflect about what they have to offer. But doing it in a vacuum, doing it by yourself, oftentimes isn't the best way to go. People can get stuck. And the process of talking with others in this life stage that are also on similar journeys can really open up not only a supportive network, and Tim mentioned that community is so important, but then also that that mirror to what you're talking about and having other people hear some of those themes. So we are a cohort. Our fellows come back to campus for 9 months. They have their own curriculum together as that cohort, and then they're part of these intergenerational classes where they learn about these grand challenges. And then we also do find it's really important to try things out, to craft experiments. We're trying to find a way to navigate this life stage. And so we also need to try out some new things. The other thing that's really stood out for us is that the intergenerational piece I find is so important because young adults are coming to campus. They're asking questions like, what do I want to do with my life? What skills do I have that the world needs? How do I navigate this new world of work where I'm not going to just be kind of having a serial career, but I'm needing to constantly pivot and adjust? And they're exactly the same questions that people in their 50s, 60s, 70s are asking. They're asking the same questions. So when you put them together in a room and talk about it, it's a rich discussion about what's important and how to navigate these life stages. And also there's just mentoring that goes both ways. And I also think that for us, a big piece of what we're doing is helping people tell different stories about who they want to be going forward. And so much of our resume focuses on the past and who we've been. And Tim, you talked about that identity piece of who am I now that I'm not who I was? And so how do you develop a new identity and tell a different story of what you have to offer, what the world needs, how you can make that transition so that you can start developing relationships in those circles where people are doing the work that you're wanting to do. So it's about that inner journey, but then it's also about making connections in the community in areas that you're really passionate about so you can help bridge to what's next. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to turn this over to Dave, who also has an academic program that has some similar themes, but also some differences.
Sure. Thank you, Kate. What I want to, so I'm over at, I direct the Encore Connecticut program. And what Encore Connecticut is focused on is assisting corporate professionals, experienced seasoned professionals. Usually the people in our program are 50 plus, and we assist them with finding a job specifically in the nonprofit sector. So it's very tailored. We're looking for them. This is directly a job search program. It's a 4-month program, and it's basically split in half, where the first half is providing an educational component on the nuanced differences between for-profit and nonprofit managerial operations. The second half is a fellowship, a 2-month fellowship, actually working with a nonprofit, usually in a nonprofit, but right now in pandemic, we're doing everything remotely. And actually we have our current class that just started last Saturday, or our current cohort, and they're going to be doing everything remotely, but working with a nonprofit on a high level project. And so the basic formula and magic sauce, we've been doing it now for 12 years, is getting people accustomed, giving them a place to sort of transition and understand about the nonprofit sector a little bit more intimately. And second, give them experience that they can, put that experience on their resume, and also B, develop a stronger network within the nonprofit sector. We strongly focus on getting them out with informational interviews. We work with them on their resumes. We work with them in mock interviews. But the whole goal is sort of repackaging what they have for the nonprofit sector and get them out into the nonprofit sector. So, you know, what am I seeing? I think we've now been doing it for 12 years. And I now get requests from nonprofits about, where are your graduates? Do you have new graduates? Or can you give this, can you alert your alumni to this new job opportunity we have? I just actually last week, which was very fitting for this type of program that we're doing now, but I was approached by the National Office of the Boys and Girls Club. And they said the types of people, it was actually the head of the department that works on CEO searches for the Boys and Girls Club. And they said they're getting too many younger individuals that are applying for the jobs, and they want more seasoned people. So they want to develop a relationship with us specifically to get the talents of people that are in their 50s and older. So what I'm seeing, and actually, I just got this from the AARP, and it's basically the title, Need to Make a Change. It's a fantastic program that they're talking about, But they have one little space here. It says, learn how to age-proof your resume. We don't agree with age-proofing. Our philosophy is you bring experience, and changing your resume so it makes it look like you're younger, eventually you're going to have an interview. It's sort of like you've got to embrace your inner you. You've got to embrace the talents that you bring. Just as Tim was saying in one of your strategies, there are certain, what makes you worthwhile? What makes you worth being that person that they want to bring in to have an interview, to consider for a job? So what we're finding is that there is a lot, and I think part of it is, at least in Connecticut, we've been doing this for 12 years. I think we've got to work on our message. And I think that's what Janine is going to talk about in a few moments. The more that we sort of say, well, it's ageism. But if we flip that around and have the message about the assets of folks that are 50 and above, that bring in seasoned experience, that's going to strengthen the success rate of people 50 and above actually getting jobs in the nonprofit sector, but also in other sectors of our economy. We like to phrase, and it's not really, it's a truth. What we see is that, at least with nonprofit organizations, they are deciding, do we hire someone with less experience? And that usually means someone younger. Or do we hire somebody with experience that might cost a little bit more? And we're finding that nonprofits, many times out, will hire the experience, because that experience can help guide an organization, especially in challenging times. Now, what we're seeing and we all know what's going on with the pandemic, but hopefully as shots start to get into the arms of everyone, the economy is going to open up, and there are many opportunities that we see up in the horizon in, give us the next 6 or 7 months. So this is a great time to be preparing for getting into the job market. So with that, especially on the message end, I'll hand it over to Janine.
I am unmuting myself. Yay. So welcome, everybody. I am so glad that we've got such a large group here. This is really exciting. So we kind of look at so now what happens, right? People who have been in amazing programs like you've just heard about, say it's me, I've developed my business model canvas and my fishing line, right? I've tackled my grand challenge. I have learned all about nonprofits. And so now I'm ready to bring all of this experience and insight and connections I've developed into the community, right? And I'm ready to go. So what happens, right? For many people, even all of a sudden, they are facing what 65% of you identified as that top challenge of ageism. So the way Changing the Narrative, which is the initiative that I run, tackles supporting employment for people age 50 plus, is we're really focused on tackling that kind of surrounding climate. We describe it as climate change, and then everybody thinks we're about the environment. That is not true. We are trying to change the climate to make it more favorable for age-friendly workplaces, and that way employers and the economy recognize the benefit of that. So what Changing the Narrative does we do 3 things, and then I'll talk specifically about how it applies to employment. We do narrative change. So we do reframing aging, the work that was developed by the Frameworks Institute. And some of you may be on a workshop that I'll be doing for the Encore Network in March about that. We do policy research and advocacy. And we do, our 3rd strategy is community education and organizing. So one of the questions that Doug posed to us is, what are we seeing? And our initiative started in 2018. And what I saw as I was doing reframing aging workshops actually around the country was every time I talked about ageism, somebody would come up to me and say, you know, that ageism thing that you're talking about, it happened to me, it happened to my partner, it's happening right now to my dad. Like, what do I do about it? And so we realized that we couldn't just be talking about reframing aging to advocates of older adult issues. We needed to reframe the older worker to employers. So instead of going to employers and going, yo, you're being ageist, what we did is we got HR people together, business people together, and we said, what are the most common stereotypes that you have or you hear about older workers? And I'm sure that you can all imagine, feel free to type them in the chat. And what we did then was we compiled all the research that actually refutes those myths and stereotypes. We put it into, at first, a business case briefing, which you can download. And Paula, maybe I can send the link and people can download some of the stuff I'm going to mention on our website. So we put it in a business case briefing, and then we just said, you know, handing out a briefing isn't enough. So we started making appointments. We developed a presentation out of it. We got a group of volunteers who had corporate backgrounds, who knew how to talk corporate business to business. And we started doing presentations at chambers of commerce, with HR, trade associations, and that kind of thing. In 2019, we did 29 of those presentations. We reached about 900 business and civic leaders in Colorado. And what was really cool about it, now keep in mind, this is pre-pandemic, 87% of those who completed an evaluation workshop said, yes, they were more likely to hire an older worker. They were really intrigued with the research on intergenerational workplaces that shows you get, you know, better creativity, improved team problem solving. And mostly people like this, what the research shows, that there's increased productivity and profitability, right? When you have intergenerational workplaces. So that was kind of our work on narrative change. How that has pivoted somewhat during the pandemic is we've also started offering those workshops and presentations to workforce development centers, because often they're charged with marketing older workers, but they don't necessarily know how to do that. That's historically not who they have seen coming to their centers. So we've started doing this kind of training with workforce development centers. The second thing that we have done about supporting older workers is really started working on public policy. So I call it kind of the carrot and the stick. The carrot is talking to employers about why it's a great deal to hire older workers. The stick is looking at our public policies and realizing that right now, policies that govern age discrimination don't have penalties that are as strong as those that cover other kinds of discrimination. So there's less of an incentive to comply. We have bizarre things like, you know, it is illegal to ask someone their age on an application, right? But it's not illegal to ask someone their high school graduation date. And we know for most people that's approximate for age. And then the other thing is, as a result of a number of federal court interpretations of the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, we know that a number of circuit courts have ruled that it doesn't apply to the hiring stage, right? So if somebody is going and trying to get that job after they've been pushed out or laid off, there's a challenge. So we're using our kind of community education organizing. We are educating older adults who are involved with us to become the advocates. We are working with a coalition that includes the top policy organization in Colorado, a university-based center on aging, some of the workforce development centers. And so we're working with them to basically strengthen public policy. One of the reasons I'm interested in an affinity group is I think, for example, as part of President Biden's Build Back Better, there are going to be a lot of workforce development money coming in the state. And I'd love for everybody on this call to imagine right now, if in each of our states, we were advocating for that money, a percentage of that money to go to support things like Encore programs, like workforce development for older workers who've been pushed out. So that's, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we're going to have a Q&A. If anybody is specifically interested in policy work, I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat, and I would love to hear from you, because I have this vision that all of us kind of around this, the United States are pressuring on a federal level for people to pay attention to older workers. So thank you.
And thank you, Janine, and also to Kate and to Dave and to Tim. I think what we've heard is really exciting. We've heard people coming at this issue from several different angles. I know that there were other candidates for this panel. We could have made it, 20 people talking about the things that they're doing. But now is your chance to ask questions of our panelists or to mention work that you're doing yourselves in perhaps some of the same veins, or perhaps it's a slightly different take. So, who would like to raise their hands and speak up? Unmute yourself and ask a question or make a comment. I see a very active chat, so I'm sure we can convert the written form to verbal.
I think, Doug, we have Jim Tavazinski looks to be raising his hand.
My only comment initially is there going to be a place where we can access various email addresses and links that people have been talking about, things like that?
The links that are in the chat, you can save the chat before we leave.
Okay.
And all of those. In terms of email addresses, there is a list of members on our website. Am I right about that, Paula? Where people can go to find ways to connect.
Okay.
I would also say that if there's somebody that you want to connect with, that you've heard say something that you want to follow up with, just send a note to them. You can do that through the chat and save their contact information.
Maybe we should explain, not everybody's used that before. If you click on that little speech bubble at the bottom, it opens up, and then there's the choice between chatting to everyone or chatting to an individual. And then if you want to save the chat, there's 3 little dots on the right. And if you click that, there's an option to save chat, and that will give you a text document when you're done with the webinar today.
Thank you. Yes, Nancy.
I'm Nancy Burke. I'm in Minneapolis, and I'm a co-owner of a business. Our website is futurepast50.com. And I have a question of people. I know that I believe that there is a lot of age discrimination in the market. However, what I tell people and what I believe is that 20% is the reality of the market, and 80% is what's between your ears. And I would be really curious what other people's reaction to that is.
Well, I'll just echo that I agree with you, and that's the philosophy over what we're doing in Connecticut is putting in your real times that you graduated, not hiding your experience, but celebrating it. And we've just found that over the years, we're now getting nonprofit, at least in the nonprofit sector, they're coming to us saying we've got new positions. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving just this morning sent us 2 jobs to promote to our graduates. So I'll leave it there. Other folks?
I think too that, the certain fields, Nancy, as you know too, like IT, marketing, I think there's a lot of stereotypes around you need to be young to be up to date with skills. But I think with older workers, one of the things that we bring is our networks. And I think when you can get in front of someone and be able to tell a really good story of not only how your skills are up to date, but also the tremendous value you bring from your whole experience. I think employers are willing to open up to thinking about it. But I think, if they're just applying for jobs and they're constantly getting rejected, I wholeheartely agree with you, Nancy, that it's really hard to kind of keep getting up every morning and putting yourself out there with this rejection. So it's, I think, more about building on the relationships you have in those networks and showing people that you have what they need.
I would echo exactly the same thing that Kate just said. I think that's really, really important. And I think it's a real misnomer, and it's proven all the time in the reinventions that I've seen myself here in the Cleveland market, the Northeast Ohio market, and across the country. And older people are recreating themselves, changing fields entirely, doing very, very big pivots, or just rebranding themselves, which is a really important thing to do. So to the person who made the comment about it's often between our ears and in our own headspace, I think that's very true. And I'll point some people to a resource. I have no other affiliation with her other than I've met her remotely, as I've met many people over the last few months, and a great rebranding person with a book to that name is Wendy Marks. Some people here in the network might know her. And if you're considering a pivot or you want to refresh your own brand, I would certainly invite you to check out Wendy Marks, M-A-R-X. Excellent information about how to do that.
Thank you, Chris. We have a couple people who have raised their hands, Kathy and then Joanne.
Yes, hi, I'm in Minneapolis and taking advantage of the program here in our state of Minnesota, in which anyone who's 62 or older can either for free or very low cost, if credit is desired, take any classes in which there's a seat available. In a state, college, or university, and that can be at the undergraduate or graduate level. So I'm going to be doing my capstone this semester for my master's in public affairs. And pretty much it's $10 a credit compared to, whatever, $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever it is a credit otherwise. It's a huge opportunity, and especially I think for anyone who didn't have an opportunity to go to undergraduate, wow, what a great thing. And most states have some kind of thing. It's not always for credit, but it certainly can be enriching and have that multi-generational component that Kate was talking about.
There's another great advocacy opportunity for those of us in states that don't have that kind of option available.
I think in Ohio, I think it's age 60, and I think the courses are free, but you can't apply them toward a degree.
Yeah, in Minnesota, you can get a PhD at $10 a credit.
Wow.
I see Jan's raising her hand too.
I think
I
Joanne.
just wanted to say that actually the source of the legislation is federal from 1975, the first of the, thanks to Robert Butler, the first of the acts. And every state does have that provision. So you really need to check into it because it gets covered up very easily by organizations or universities that prefer not to think about that alternative. So it is something that it definitely requires some advocacy. And I got my, at the end of my PhD was done with that in Minnesota, which was great benefit.
Thanks, Jan. Joanne, you had your hand up for a while. We'd love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Joanne Webb, and I'm the director of the Career Center at the Actors Fund. And you can imagine, we specifically work with the performing artists and entertainment industry people from all different parts. It's not just actors, it's everybody. And you can imagine right now, it's just crazy. But we've always been about helping them find other kind of work to keep them going, because it is a very episodic kind of work. And what I have found over time is, and even during this time, is training, as well as, if you want to get a degree, obviously, but furthering training. Technology becomes an issue for a lot of our people who are not so much 50 plus, but 60 plus, where they shy away from it, or they're not keeping up with it, on a level that they can feel comfortable with it. And the other thing is even just doing volunteer stuff, just to be able to develop skills, and develop network. I'm one to say, my team hears this all the time, as do our clients, about a good resume is a good resume, but a good resume with good networking is a great resume. Because if you can get it to, I know from my own job that I started at the Actors Fund as a career counselor, and basically somebody had recommended me to get in there, and that got me an interview much faster than had I just tried to send something by myself, and really getting people, giving people, being advocates for our clients, about doing that kind of work, and hearing good stories. I think just hearing more stories, good stories where people do get to the other side, and what they had to do to get there, and recognizing certain jobs that are more, they're more age friendly, like I think teachers are more, education is a much more age friendly job than some of the technical jobs, and I think we have to be thinking in those ways, to support our people.
Let me just say one quick thing about volunteering. There's actually a statistic that says that people who volunteer during their job search have a 26% better chance of landing their job. I see Diana.
Diana? Down there. Oh, hopefully it unmuted. Okay. Well, it feels like old home week here for me. This is the first time I've attended one of these types of sessions. I live in Minnesota, but Nancy and I have connected in the past. Paul and I just connected. Quick thing, I'm a retired broadcaster here in the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. But I have started a YouTube channel, and so my focus is on the 50 plus. So a lot of who I interview, and I just interviewed Kate, she's living on the channel right now, for the interview to talk about UMAC. Other people that I have talked with started businesses after the age of 55, nonprofits, for-profits, and some other things. So first of all, I'm here to ask people if you know of great stories that I can interview via Zoom, because I had to flip from doing things in my living room to doing things on Zoom. Now that allows me, though, the opportunity to go to all states and international countries. So one of the interviews is about technologies that seniors need, and my interview guest was in Israel. Okay, so having said all that, I will put my email address over on the side if you know of people that have fantastic stories of how they pivoted once they got into that 50 plus category, and have followed a lot of all the speakers, what they've talked about this morning. One more thing, I believe, Joanne, you were just talking about, you work with the Actors Fund. One of the people that I interviewed here lost his position after many years at the Children's Theater. They wanted new blood. So they suggested that he needed to move on. So he started something called Theater 55. So all of his actors are 50 plus. And so he got a grant from the state of Minnesota. They do 2 performances a year. The youngest actor is 49, the oldest is 78. And they have already done Hair by those who lived it. And because of COVID, they flipped over to doing theater, radio plays from the 50s. So he has always been a regular. So I've interviewed him every time that he's come up with a new concept for what they're doing. So I just leave that out there. There are things that people have done here in this state to rise to the occasion when they were handed a lemon, made lemonade out of it. So with that, I'll leave my email over on the side.
Diana, is there a link where we can find your stories?
It's if you go to YouTube and you either put my name in, Diana Pierce, or you put What's Next with Diana Pierce, both of them should take you to the same thing. You'll see my little icon, my picture.
That would be helpful, and that way.
You want me to put that over on the side?
Please, if you don't mind.
I will do that. I will.
Joanne,
while we're talking, I can do that.
Is that left over from before?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Joanne, your hand is still up, Joanne.
Oh.
Your hand is still up. I don't know if it's left over from before, or if you have something more that you want to add. Okay, I take it not. We have 4 minutes to go, so I'm going to turn it over to Paula
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you to our facilitators, panelists, and to everybody who carved time out this morning to be with us. I have a quick